Hi everyone, so I thought I'd actually finish off this journal. I made it the other day. So this white paper I thought I was going to use in my project, but then I found the paper was too thin and flimsy. Wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. But I did use these to make a template and to measure off my other pages to make sure that all the pages fitted nicely in the journal. Now what I'm doing is I'm hinging two pages together. My tape was a bit funny. So I've just used some masking tape here, and then we hinge the two pages together. And then I have some of this like kind of washi tape stuff, but it's not really washi tape, just to decorate those edges. But also I found that it didn't stick so well. So later on you'll see I've actually sewn them on just to make sure that they didn't lift anymore. Just squashing it all flat. And then some of my other dyed papers that you saw me making along the way. The music sheets. Again, just hinging them together with some masking tape and some of this other decorative tape. So then I went ahead and just stuck all the papers together off camera. So I've just done a few for an example. So I haven't done them all on camera. So now I'm using that white paper just to measure off the sizes of my papers for the journal itself. You see that sticky tape's just coming straight off. So it was a bit of a challenge, but nonetheless, learning curves. Nothing's a mistake, there's only learning. So I used some other tea dyed papers that I've made along the way. Just measuring them all off. So instead of cutting them, I've just folded them down to size. It's quite nice. It makes lots of little pockets and flaps and makes it very interactive. So I actually prepared two signatures for this, but when I put the first signature in the cover, I figured that's about it. I couldn't use both signatures. It just makes the journal too fat. So, and it wouldn't close nicely. So instead I prepared two signatures, but only used one. Lots of folding. Okay, so now I've taken some lace and some ribbon just to decorate those turn-ups. And just around the pages, it also kind of strengthens those pages again. So here I'm just gluing on some ribbon and lace. This ribbon was lifting on the one side, so I had to double sew it. You'll see just now how I double sew them. Some extra pretties, make it look nice. And sewing them down flat. So again, I've just shown a few examples of how I decorate the pages with the lace and the ribbons. The rest I did off camera. but I do a bit of a flip through just now, you'll see. Just trimming off the edges before I sew around the whole page. And again, this makes those little pockets and flip outs and tuck spots. There we go. Very nice. Okay, so this is the one where I've now sewn those tapes flat because they were really lifting and it wasn't so cool. So just doing double rows of stitches there, just zigzag stitches, just to make sure that those pieces of tape don't lift again. And this also obviously then makes a good bind for the pages together, so when you sew it into the actual journal cover, it's got a nice strong point to sew through. So these are just some cut-offs, some stripped cut-offs, and then I've just drawn some little stitches on there, little crosses, just to make some like faux stitching. Other side, ink the edges. Sticking it flat, trimming off the excess, little crosses to make faux stitching, and then again just putting some lace and ribbon around the edges. I just glued this little piece on because it looked a bit bleak without it. Okay, you see I'm using a different glue now because this ribbon is actually see-through, and if you use the other glue, that glue seeps through and it doesn't look so nice. So I just used some glue stick and then just sew it down flat. There we go. Little pockets. So then I went ahead, like I said, and just sewed all of the pages off camera. Now I'm making little extra little pockets, tuck spots in some of the pages, not all of them. Just a few of them I thought they just needed that extra little bit. So I got some soft cardstock that I'm busy measuring off. And then I found some other T-dot sort of papers and just sticking that little card on there. Cut it out. There we go. Ink the edges. Go. Just using my circle punch just to punch out a little semicircle notch. Ink those back up and then glue the edges, only 3 sides because you want to tuck something in the top there. Inking the edges just makes it pop a little bit more. This one I sewed around, so when it's glued down it looks like it's sewed in, but it's not. Okay, the edges, stick it down, nice little pocket. Some ribbon on this one to match the ribbon on the page itself. This one was pretty cool because you'll see now I've actually gone into an old gardening magazine and just found some pretty images. And that piece of paper is from a bunch of pretty flowers that I got the other day. So that plastic which the flowers are wrapped in. Piece of leftover lace that I had from decorating one of the pages. Just sewing it all together just to hold it down. So around the edges. Now I'm just doing some stamping there. It's just some scrapbooking paper that I'm going to back this onto. I stamped some more of those music notes on there. Bunch of semicircle to make a little notch. Inking the edges. Another little stamp. And then I just outlined those music notes just to make them pop a little bit more. They looked a bit flat. Much better. Here we go. Magazine images. They're a lot of fun, especially from the gardening magazines. There's some really gorgeous things that you can do with these. Just backing it again onto some cardstock. Sewing it around just to make sure that none of those papers get unglued or anything. Other side, another pretty image from that magazine. Cutting it down to size, and gluing it onto the cardstock. I made the notch to one side instead of in the middle, just to make it slightly different and interesting. Sewing around just to secure. Pretty. I'm just layering them all on top of each other to see if I'm happy. And then I decided to go ahead and just do some stamping on the other pages. Let's make it interesting. Some of these stamps have like really sweet little sentiments about friendship and stuff. So I thought that would be nice to include. Okay, so now I'm using that initial paper to make myself a little guide for when I sew my signature into my cover, making holes using that template. And now I'm layering my papers together for the final sew. So I've done a basic 3-hole pamphlet stitch, which I'm doing now. I'm just removing that template out of there so we don't sew through the template. 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Pulling everything tight, making it all secure, making sure it's all secure. A little bow, cut off the excess, checking if it closes nicely. Flip through. And then I decided to make a pretty cover, just some old book pages. Inking the edges just to make it stand out a little bit more. And just backing that onto some brown paper. Ripping the edges. I decided to stamp this basket and emboss it in copper. And just cutting it out. The other day I made these watercolor flower thingies on old book pages. Again, just cutting it out. Just inking the edges and placing everything to see if it's all looking good. Sometimes the ink pads are easier to use because you can get into those little nooks and crannies. Just placing everything together. And I decided I wanted more of that paper as well in the background. That's looking great. Making sure everything's all lining nicely and gluing it all flat. Then I found this little sentiment that I'd cut out of a magazine as well. Sometimes you can find some really cool sentiments in magazines. And then I decided just to put it on a bit of brown board again. Some fancy cutting on the edges. Inking those edges again. Sticking that sentiment down. And then I found two little tiny little brads or split pins just to make an effect. Stuck those on there. Gluing that all down nicely, making sure that that glue spread nicely. Then I have all of these punched out little flowers, so I thought I'd make some 3D flowers. A little bit of glue and just sticking one on top of the other. Okay, and I'm just using a ball tool just to push those middles down and make those flowers kind of stand up so they're more 3D. And I have these like little bling stickers, so I thought I'd use those to make the centers of the flowers. It's very pretty. Just gives us a bit more character. Sorry for the extra background noises. I also have noticed that my camera tends to adjust its light as we're going. So as I'm moving, obviously it's getting lighter and darker. I'm still learning how to do all of this filming and stuff. So if you can just bear with me as I'm learning. Here we go, pretty flowers stuck down. And just change my cotton. I wanted more of a natural looking black was really nice because it stands out so nicely against the others. So I'm just sewing around the edge just to give it an effect. So it looks like it's been sewn onto the front cover. This is what I call the crazy stitch. I like this stitch quite a lot. I like to use this one quite often. It's just very different. Here we go. Pretty journal cover with a beautiful sentiment. Okay, then I just stick that onto the cover. Pretty cover. putting some extra glue just to make sure that it holds down flat. I'm just adding some big beads onto this closure just to make it pretty. And also it's nice because it kind of like weights down that ribbon. Just holds everything in place. Paint the edges. There we go.